to have influence anymore, right?
Well, there's that, but there's another weird thing that I just don't understand. So, for example, let's imagine that we start hearing a new kind of wave of discussion out of Washington about labor shortages, which is, what is the best way of addressing the nation's serious labor shortage in science, technology, and engineering, right? And then you'll have like, I think the best way is to, more money for Head Start. No, I think like some whole huge thing. Is there no one in all of Washington and in any newspaper who can say labor shortages, long-term labor shortages do not exist in market economies? What are you people even talking about? Like, how is it that the entire Washington class never asks basic frame questions of whatever it is that they've decided to discuss? How is it that this is such a closed world where the obvious question is like, how did somebody convince you to discuss labor shortages in a market economy? There's a wage mechanism. It boggles the mind.
Well, I guess I'll argue with you from within the consensus for a minute. I think the labor shortages that most people in Washington think tank world are concerned with are not the idea that, market mechanisms won't sort of assign wages appropriately, but that in an aging society, you will have, an insufficient percentage of workers given current retirement ages and sort of social security expectations and so on.
You have an asset distribution which favors the silent and boomer generations and even the Xers over the millennials.
Right.
You would imagine that the wage mechanism would be the way of addressing what you would claim would be a labor shortage. In other words, the issue is that you've renamed the thing that pushes wages up a labor shortage, which requires government remediation. And this is like completely confusing from a left of center guy about the right. How is it that you guys who want to talk about limited government actually are talking about government interference with the market, which may be telling employers pay more money? Like, in other words, the real problem, and this is very funny because Ann Coulter sort of enters this story. At some point, I just got sick of this, and I started writing a tweet about what we need is a 50-year crushing labor shortage to get American CEOs howling in pain and writhing on the floor, demanding relief and giving them none. And Ann Coulter writes, yes! and you're just thinking like, okay,
right,
that's a left of center position. Never fucking talk to me about labor shortages, you goddamn assholes. That's sort of the energy. And what I can't understand is, how do we have a class so that no one at the Washington Post or the New York Times or CNN or MSNBC, like, there is no representative of analytic thought that says, wait, who convinced us to have a discussion about labor shortages? Or like a different one would be immigration. The idea that restrictionism is xenophobia has been maintained by our news world for decades. Like, there is only one reason to be a restrictionist. It's a completely insane position. And the same thing we had on, like the Great Moderation. Volatility was being compressed. And all the smart people, no offense, outside of this institutional class were saying, this is not going to go on. You're compressing volatility the same way you're stopping a forest from going up in flames. And when the forest fire comes, boy, is it going to be a lot bigger than the fires we would have had if you weren't suppressing volatility. Let me make the charge at sort of the strongest level. I think the smart people are outside of the Citadel. And I think that the Citadel is having these discussions internally. And the smart people outside of the Citadel are saying, what are you guys even talking about? And that this is the engine